Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Raggio. I'm a senior fellow at Foundation for Defense of Democracies and editor of FDD's Long War Journal. This is Generation Jihad, the podcast that covers all things in what used to be known as the global war on terror, but we now call the Long War. Today's Friday. Benim is traveling for the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be joined. Today's co-host is going to be my friend and colleague at FDD, David Daoud. David is a senior fellow at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. David focuses on Hezbollah, Israel, and Lebanese issues. David, happy Friday. Welcome to Generation Jihad. And it's an interesting day, is it not?
Could very well be a happy Friday, depending how things turn out.
Look, I got every finger and toe crossed on this one. We'll talk about it. We're joined by our friend and colleague at FDD, Ahmad Sharawi. Ahmad is a research analyst at FDD. He focuses on Middle East affairs, specifically the Levant, Iraq, and Iranian intervention in Arab affairs, as well as U.S. foreign policy towards the region. Ahmad, welcome to Generation Jihad. Great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, hopefully we got some good news, right? So,
hopefully.
Yeah, David and Ahmad, as we're talking, are going to be keeping an eye on the news. So the big news today. We're recording right at 1 o'clock Eastern on Friday, September 27th. The Israelis launched a very large airstrike into the heart of Beirut. The strike hit, correct me if I'm wrong, David, it was Hezbollah's main headquarters in Beirut. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's according to IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari.
Yeah. So their Israeli officials are claiming senior Hezbollah leaders were present at the headquarters. And we're seeing reports that Hassan Nasrallah himself, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, was the target. David, any word from Hezbollah on what's been happening here? Anything else you could fill in that I missed? This is a breaking story, so give me the deets.
Nothing yet officially from Hezbollah. Nothing yet officially from the IDF. IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari spoke earlier. Mentioned that there was a strike in Beirut, did not talk about the target, which was irregular. The specific person, rather, which was irregular. They usually mention we tried to target this guy, we tried to target that guy. This time it was just the Hezbollah HQ that they mentioned. Hezbollah itself has yet to provide any official updates. I'm seeing Hezbollah officials speaking to Reuters saying that Hassan Nasrallah is okay. Ahmad showed me earlier that Tasnim, Iranian outlet that is close to the IRGC, is saying that he's okay. There are other outlets that I'm seeing that are saying that the Iranians are checking whether he's okay or not. The Israelis there's a headline in Ma'ariv earlier saying that the possibility that Nasrallah had been struck is rising. So contradictory information. The most we know now, reading Channel News or Channel 12 News rather, is that the strike's target was Hassan Nasrallah, and that the IDF is checking whether he was in fact killed, and that this will take some time to determine.
Certainly. We're at that, what my friend and colleague at the CBS Radio, John Batchelor, always describes it at this point, the fog of war. We're at the very initial reports. It's things are going to be changing. The story is certainly going to be changing over the next couple of hours. Ahmed, what is it? Hezbollah's response to this? Would they normally come out and tell us exactly Nasrallah is alive or Nasrallah is dead? What is Hezbollah's response to situations like this, particularly given, Nasrallah is the apex Hezbollah leader here?
So Hezbollah has been or has said, or in response to these reports, that they'll be releasing a statement shortly about not necessarily the fate of Nasrallah, but in response to the rumors. The last time this happened, or not an assassination attempt, but when it came to Fuad Shukr last month, end of July, when Israel said that he was killed, Hezbollah initially denied these reports, and Hezbollah, along with its media partners, let's say. So they initially said that he was safe, he survived the assassination attempt, But then reports came out later that he was killed, and then they basically confirmed it. Looking at the previous assassinations in Dahiya, so looking at last Friday, yesterday, and Wednesday, I believe, Hezbollah whenever a strike happens in Dahiya and the high commander is struck or is killed, they announce that he was killed. This time, with someone like Nasrallah, the Secretary General of the organization, things will not be as clear as, let's say, the commander of the aerial unit. Things might take time. They might deny it at first, then wait for the Israelis to confirm. So it's going to be a long day with multiple unconfirmed reports. We'll just have to wait and see.
And Ahmed, what was the interval between the strike that killed Fuad Shakur? Again, he was the terrorist who was responsible for the Marine barracks bombing in 1983, long-term Hezbollah military commander. But what was the time between the strike that occurred and Hezbollah actually admitting that he was dead?
So if I remember correctly, the IDF confirmed that they got Fuad Shakur at around 9 to 10 p.m. Lebanon time. Hezbollah confirmed it the next day, so about 24 hours later. People assumed that they were looking at the rubble and trying to find the body, but the IDF basically confirmed it 24 hours before Hezbollah acknowledged that he was killed.
David, do we have any indication that other senior, the reports are obviously that it was a senior leadership meeting for Hezbollah. Any indication who might have been there? I mean, given the decimation that Hezbollah has experienced with its senior leadership, would it have been wise for Hezbollah senior leaders to gather in Beirut at this time?
That's actually a question that Ahmad asked me on FDD's Arabic Twitter space not a few minutes ago. How is it that they keep meeting in Dahiya? So to answer the question in order, we're seeing rumors that Hashim Safiuddin, who is Nasrallah's maternal cousin, looks like the guy. He's the head of Hezbollah's executive council. Probably, I would argue, one of Hezbollah's, if not Hezbollah's, most powerful body, most influential body. This is the body that runs their schools, their charities, the Martyrs organization, TV stations. Right. This is Hezbollah as an organization. This is the regenerative power of Hezbollah. He's also on the Jihad Council, Hezbollah's military council. He's supposed to be Nasrallah's successor. Again, he resembles the guy. He even has a speech defect with his R that's similar to Nasrallah. So this was the guy who was supposed to replace him. I saw reports that maybe 10 other people unnamed, never mind. One person, according to Hezbollah media, Hezbollah affiliated media, one person killed, 50 wounded. Still too soon. Why are they meeting there? I mean, one would think that after you kill Fuad Shakur on July 30th, right, it's been almost 2 months, the ability to find this guy, to target him, to kill him, it should have put the others on notice that, Israeli intelligence has deeply penetrated Hezbollah's organizational structure, that you're all compromised. And then there's, again, successive strikes, right? The pager attack and so on and so forth. And yet, and over the past 2 weeks, all these assassinations of senior Hezbollah commanders are happening in Dahiya, in the same place. And these guys aren't moving. My sense is arrogance. They don't know. Maybe they don't know where to go, right? Maybe they feel that their organization is so penetrated by Israeli intelligence that wherever they go, they're going to be at risk. And perhaps Dahiya is the safest place for them. Let's not forget, you could say they could go to Iran, except the Israelis took out Haniya in Iran. So where is there to go? And who's going to take them in? You have limited options. If you're trying to travel either overland or through air to, say, Syria or Iraq, who's to say the Israelis, again, with that depth of intelligence penetration, don't find you, don't know that you're.
One of the things that concerned me about the pager operation, right? where Hezbollah detonated thousands of pagers of I would assume that if they were able to plant explosives on those pagers, they'd be able to track them as well and be able to monitor the communications. And one of my concerns was, they lost that ability, but clearly the Israelis
had more tricks up their sleeves.
Exactly.
And even if you're moving, I mean, you think a lot of these Radwan commanders weren't killed while they were stationary. They were killed on motorbikes or traveling in cars somewhere in South Lebanon. So again, it's not just the Israelis' ability to identify the person, to identify their position in Hezbollah's organizational hierarchy. It's the ability to find the guy in real time and kill them in real time. If I were Hassan Nasrallah and I'm thinking of making moves to Syria or to Iran, or to Iraq or somewhere to get out of harm's way, I'd be worried about this, that this isn't going to protect me. They could intercept me en route. And clearly the Israelis have stopped caring about consequences. And the consequences, it seems like, are not, so far. I don't want to, discount Hezbollah just yet. But so far, their response has been a dud.
It's non-existent,
relatively,
in my estimation. They launched a ballistic missile the other day.
There was a one ballistic missile. If you're trying to actually hit Tel Aviv and harm Tel Aviv, you don't launch one ballistic missile. You launch a barrage, and you make sure that you get past David's sling. This was meant to be a symbolic strike. So from the Israeli side, you're like, all right, well,
go ahead.
Looks like we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, we'll play this game all day long. So it seems.
Yeah.
Ahmed, how badly do you think Hezbollah has been hurt by these last couple of weeks of strikes?
The defense minister Yoav Gallant said, I think 2 days ago. So when Israel struck 1,600 Hezbollah positions, said that tens of thousands of rockets or missiles were destroyed. Of course, I think Hezbollah's missile arsenal or rocket arsenal extends between 150,000 and 200,000, including some PGMs. Of course, I mean, I think Israel has caused significant damage over the past week in terms of the group's capability, weaponry, as well as the key leadership. However, Hezbollah still remains a threat. Its precision-guided missiles are still there. They can target any place in Israel. Now, it's a question of willingness. Are they willing to target these areas? Until now, as David said, we haven't seen that. But yeah, their military infrastructure has been severely degraded, especially in the south. The south has been targeted tens of thousands of times since October 8th. Israel has been focusing on that since day one, and now it's shifting to the Beqa, shifting to Dahi in Beirut. So yeah, I mean, I can say that they've been significantly impacted overall.
And with the Israeli strike on the communications, right, blowing up the radios, blowing up the pagers, Hezbollah has to be thinking that all of their comms are penetrated at this point. I mean, communications are key. How are you going to coordinate a long range or an extensive attack by fighters throughout the country without communications? This Hezbollah has to be reeling. Are we hearing any chatter, David, Ahmed? Either of you could field that question. Are we hearing any chatter from Hezbollah fighters or commanders that they've been that they've been compromised, or have they been tight-lipped about this?
I think they're, of course, going to be tight-lipped because the issue here is that what the Israeli attack did wasn't just, again, the direct kinetic physical harm to Hezbollah. Its infrastructure, its ability to communicate freely, which is necessary to waging a battle. It's also the humiliation. It's the demonstration that Hezbollah, this big bad organization, was a paper tiger. Again, so far, we don't know if Hezbollah is going to decide to escalate to the nightmare scenarios that the Israelis have been estimating for years. But if you come out and say we are this compromised, we are unable to communicate, you feed into that image of weakness that would lead to people, your support base, who support you based on this idea that you're this powerful resistance organization, you can deter the Israelis, you can defeat them. They say, well, why do we need to line up behind you? You can't protect me. Now, that being said, Hassan Nasrallah said in what may have been one of his last speeches that they suffered a tremendous blow with the beeper attack. He didn't deny that. The direct impact on the organization, but he also did say, "Don't worry, it didn't impact our ability to communicate. We were able to, as powerful as that blow was, we were able to get things under control and figure out what was going on and continue moving forward immediately." So, are you going to get an official statement from Hezbollah fighters or commanders that, hey, we're screwed? We don't even know how to communicate from one sector to the other? Probably not. I also haven't seen leaks from disgruntled fighters. I haven't seen that. I mean, maybe Ahmad has, but I certainly haven't seen that so far.
Anything, Ahmad?
I haven't seen anything, but I think one important thing is that the lack of communicate, or at least the lack of these communication systems, will allow or will let these Hezbollah fighters, or the commanders at least, to host in-person meetings, and thus makes it easier for Israel to strike them. So
it's a great point, Ahmed.
That's an excellent.
But on another note, I've been looking at, or I've been seeing reports on Telegram that Netanyahu is returning to Israel right now.
Yes,
he was scheduled to return tomorrow. So yeah, it should be interesting.
That's official, Ahmed. It's official. He's returning it.
You guys think that's an indication that something big might have happened here?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, thoughts. That's my take as well. Really interesting. And just as someone who's tracked the assassination campaigns, God, particularly the campaign against Al Qaeda and allied groups in Pakistan. There's a lot of positive. Ahmed, you're right. It forces them to meet in person, but it also forces these groups to evolve as well. If Hezbollah could survive this, they're going to come up with alternate communications means to talk. It's inevitable. It forces these groups to increase their operational security. That is sort of the downside of detonating those pagers, of detonating those the handheld radios, because Hezbollah if they were wise, like that was the shocking thing about the radios detonating one day after the pagers, that Hezbollah, that if anyone was even near an electronic device, they had to be crazy. But clearly the word hadn't gotten out, maybe because they couldn't get their information on a pager, I guess. But it's interesting stuff. David, you had mentioned that you discussed escalation, right? I think what we've witnessed here, and I'm going to give you credit. I did it on the previous podcast. I don't think you were on. I was skeptical, that when you had said in a group chat we were having that the Israelis were trying to provoke a response from Hezbollah in order to sort of get this war over with, right? Because it has to happen. I think all three of us, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ahmed. I'm a believer that the Band-Aid needs to get ripped off here. What does the current escalation tell us about Israeli strategy here? What is the purpose of ramping this up and going after Nasrallah? I mean, we saw a succession. They went from targeting ground, regular. Obviously, some of those carrying pagers, probably a lot of them were commanders. But when you kill or wound thousands, clearly a lot of those are just regular, mid and low level fighters as well. Then they bring it up to attacking the Radwan leadership and other leadership, all the way to the top, to Hassan Nasrallah. What does this tell us, David?
It's actually interesting. Ahmed and I have been discussing this also in depth. We have a piece that we have a piece that we have a piece that we're working on. It's been a bit of a stop and go to get it done, but maybe this will give us the push. Look, so you have this war of attrition that's been going on, right? The Israelis have their objectives from the outset, which is to force Hezbollah to decouple Lebanon ceasefire from Gaza ceasefire. Now, this is kind of an equation of pain here. So for the past 11 months, the pain has been pretty much not entirely mutual, but relatively balanced. And, Nasrallah's come out and said it is like, our people get displaced from their homes. Their people get displaced from their homes. Our lives are disrupted. Their lives are disrupted. Our people are killed. Their people are killed. So the way he was looking at it is like it was relatively balanced, right? So the pain wasn't sufficient to get Hezbollah to back away from its word to continue to committing to Gaza. Because if they back away, if they are forced to back away, or if they back away on their own, they're going to look weak, and weakness is going to lead them to lose, this credibility that we were talking about earlier. And you could have a slow erosion of their ability to regenerate forces. Right? People lose faith in them. They're like, why should I sign up for this organization? Why should I support this organization? So the Israeli calculus now is how much pain can we inflict upon you as Hezbollah to make accepting that decoupling acceptable, right? To make the consequences of accepting that decoupling acceptable. Now, again, the problem with the decoupling is that it could lead to this process where Hezbollah ends up rolling up entirely, to Hezbollah's demise. So how much pain can you inflict on someone to say, basically, to make them accept dying? So the Israelis aren't necessarily going to a ground invasion. I think they would suffice if this level of pain would suffice to force Hezbollah to decouple, then we won't see a ground invasion. I'm not optimistic. This isn't, again, the other side of the coin for Hezbollah is going out of existence. No, organizations don't willingly go out of existence. We're seeing this with Hamas in Gaza. This is what we're going to see then, I would say, is perhaps a continued continued action by Israel at this level of escalation. Are they trying to go to Hezbollah into overreacting so they can do what is obviously necessary, which is a ground maneuver to deal a critical, perhaps irreparable blow to Hezbollah? Yes, the thing is, as we see, Hezbollah is not giving them that, right? No matter what the Israelis are doing, no matter how much pain they're inflicting, no matter how many red lines the Israelis are crossing, I think Hezbollah realizes on the other end of it, they're stuck. Either, if they back down, they're stuck. And if they give the Israelis the excuse to do a ground maneuver in Lebanon, and Israel then, right, Nasrallah issued a challenge, and again, his last speech, and again, possibly his final speech, directed at Yoav Gallant, defense minister, at Benjamin Netanyahu, prime minister. I challenge you, I dare you to return your civilians to their homes by force. Now imagine if for the first time in the history of the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, Israel is able to impose terms on Hezbollah that demonstrate a clear victory. This is unprecedented. You put Hezbollah in a situation where their entire image is just shattered, right? They can't give Israel that ability. So now I think what they're hoping for is let's just keep Hezbollah's calculus. Let's stay at this level. Let's not grant the Israelis the hope they're looking for, and let's just pray and wait for that ceasefire in Gaza, so we can take a step back from the edge. The international community can come in and restrain Israel, and then we can claim this momentous victory, having won that challenge. So that's where we are now.
So, Ahmed, I'll ask you, and David, you could answer this as well. Does Hezbollah risk being weakened so greatly? Like if Nasrallah is killed, a large chunk of its military and political leadership is taken out. Do rival groups inside of Lebanon start to consider Hezbollah to be so weak as that they could take advantage of it? Or are we not anywhere close to that yet? But I'm thinking over time, right? If Israel kills Nasrallah and keeps this level of pressure up, could there be a tipping point where Hezbollah is just so weak domestically, or is it so ensconced in the Lebanese political scene?
I'll let Ahmed take a first stab, and then I'll comment on it after.
I think it all depends also on the external support. Is if Hezbollah is weakened, or if Nasrallah is killed, will Iran primarily will it continue supporting the group with weapons and money and all that stuff? When it comes to opposition, or at least a rival coming up, I know David knows the internal Lebanese dynamic more than me. But David, do you think Amal would become a threat? Would they take over and go? I mean, would we see things like the 1980s when Hezbollah and Amal, the
Mhm.
the two biggest Shia groups in Lebanon, were fighting over power.
I think it's a matter of what we've never seen from the Lebanese, either during their civil war or ever since, is a willingness to fight for their country. Right, the Lebanese civil war ended up very quickly being the Lebanese basically sitting and watching others, Israelis, Syrians, Palestinians, fighting while they just basically, and I'm talking about the militias, not the civilians. Obviously, the Lebanese civilians, large numbers of them died in that civil war, and that kind of that Lebanese unwillingness to take any action to defend their country, take back their country, is a mainstay of Lebanese culture. It stays this way to this day, right? Either the United States come save us, or you hear from, the analyst / activist clique in Washington D.C. that I love so much. Let the Israelis come in again. Let Israeli boys die because I'm not willing to go to my cousin literally and push back on him. And in conversations that Ahmed and I have even had with certain people who see the world the way we do as it comes to Hezbollah, I don't think there's this, if Israel weakens Hezbollah, the willingness to do what is necessary afterwards to finish the job does not seem to me to be there. The perception of the areas that Hezbollah dominates as belonging to those people in the same way as their homes do, meaning, like, let's take a Maronite, right? If they're looking at a place like Junia, which is a Maronite stronghold, they look at that as their home. But then they don't look at a place like Tyre as their Lebanon just as much as Junia, and the people living there as just as much their people. So that creates a void. You could damage Hezbollah. So you don't have the willingness, you don't have this sense that this country belongs to me and I'm willing to do whatever is necessary, not just to protect Junia, but to protect Tyre. This allows, this vacuum allows Iran, its proxies, to come in and perhaps resuscitate a Hezbollah that has been severely damaged by Israel. The Israelis can't do this job. What are they supposed to do? Kill the entire support base that allows Hezbollah to regenerate? That's barbaric. It's immoral. It's not feasible. It's not the Israeli objective. All the Israelis can do is damage this organization significantly militarily, and then the Lebanese have to then fill the gap themselves by returning these parts of Lebanon into the fold. And there, from what I've seen, there is no willingness to do that. How would Amal react? Specifically, this is the rival / allied Shiite organization in Lebanon. I don't know. They're a spent force. They're a cult of personality that centers upon their leader, Nabi Berri, who is in his mid to late 80s. This man is not going to last much longer. There's no clear successor. There's definitely no successor that has the charisma or the draw of Nabi Berri. I don't think this is a force that could pick up the remnants of Hezbollah or that has the willingness to take the action necessary to finish off the remnants of Hezbollah. I unfortunately don't see any hope coming from the Lebanese on how to do this. The only thing that solution that Ahmed and I potentially talked about is the restoration of a security zone in Lebanon, an Israeli security zone, one that is not based on does not repeat the mistakes of the 1985 to 2000 security zone, meaning it's based on active defense rather than static defense. It doesn't rely on a corrupt and militarily inept and brutal proxy like the South Lebanon Army. It's the IDF doing the job. And what would allow this, and this is the big distinction, is that the Israeli public is behind the decimation of Hezbollah, doing whatever is necessary to decimate Hezbollah. This wasn't the case in 1985 to 2000 because the Israelis didn't perceive of Hezbollah as significant enough of a threat to make those sacrifices. Now there is, this perception does exist. So you could have a security zone 10 to 15 kilometers along the border, pushing Hezbollah, north of the Litani, retreating to this security zone, and from that security zone using active defense to continue striking at whatever remains of Hezbollah, preventing its regeneration by force, and definitely preventing it from traveling south of Litani. That, to me, seems like the most feasible option, rather than relying on the mirages of again, the Ahmad Shalabis of Lebanon or the Bashir Gemails of Lebanon.
Right. Would that require Israeli presence in southern Lebanon? Israeli occupation?
It would absolutely have to. And again, not in the way that it was done in 1985 to 2000, which was a minimal force presence, over-reliance on this incompetent and brutal force, the South Lebanon army, to do most of the job, and not static defense, but active defense, not just soldiers being sent to South Lebanon to hunker down in forts that Hezbollah could then target with mortars and rockets. And maybe there were like some minor operations in South Lebanon. But for the most part, it was just the IDF were sitting ducks in South Lebanon because the government would not give the green light for more active security measures, more active operational measures. And that was, again, because the Israeli public opinion had soured on operations in Lebanon after the very controversial 1982 war. And that kind of put the IDF in a limbo. They had to stay in Lebanon to combat Hezbollah, but they also couldn't go so far and risk enough casualties to where the Israeli public would say, why are 10 guys dying in an operation? Why are 100 guys dying a year over an organization that's, who cares about Hezbollah, right? It's 6 guys with a rocket. Again, that perception has changed. And I think now there is a willingness on the Israeli public side to, again, I hear this from residents of the north whose houses are bombarded, do what is necessary. Whatever the Israeli Home Front has to take, let's do what's necessary. Whatever casualties and sacrifices we have to make in Lebanon, let's do what's necessary, because this threat has become, if not existential, it's definitely strategic. And that would make a security zone run by the Israelis a very different proposition from the one that existed in 1985 to 2000.
And how does this conflict, or does this conflict, with UN Resolution 1701?
It doesn't necessarily. I mean, the UN Resolution 1701 conditionally abrogated Israel's right to self-defense, conditionally, on the condition that Lebanon, it required all foreign forces to withdraw from Lebanon, including the Israelis, obviously, as a foreign force. But this was conditioned on the fact that Lebanon would deploy 15,000 troops to South Lebanon, and those troops, it's not just a numerical issue, that those troops would have the willingness to confront and rein in Hezbollah, that Lebanon would prevent the entry of arms and materiel that were unauthorized into its territory, that it would disarm Hezbollah, that it would distance it north of the Litani. None of these things happened. Right now, we have the outcome of Lebanon's unwillingness or inability to implement the terms of Resolution 1701. They're impacting Israel, and Israel is allowed to take proportionate measures in self-defense against this threat. They've gone to the Lebanese. They've tried for 11 months to do the diplomatic route. Now we have this 21-day ceasefire that is being proposed. And Ahmed and I have discussed this. All that's going to do, and Ahmed, you should talk about the PB you just published. All that's going to do is give Hezbollah some time to do R&R and to figure out. Imagine if you're in a boxing match and you have your opponent on the ropes, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to give you 20 seconds. I'm going to stop hitting you for 20 seconds. He's down, he's out, and you're just giving 20 seconds. What's he going to do? He's going to take a breath. He's going to figure out your weak points, and he's going to hit you back. And that's what a 21-day ceasefire would do. And I think Ahmed, take it from here on your.
Yeah, go ahead, Ahmed. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So I mean, the ceasefire proposal just gives Hezbollah the opportunity to regroup, restore its communication network that's been down since the pager and the walkie-talkie attack. And I remember Nasrallah said in his speech that it will take them 50 or 2 weeks or 15 days to restore the communication system, and that was last week. So, given the timing, the system would be restored by the time the ceasefire ends, and it offers no solution for Hezbollah, or offers no obligation for Hezbollah to retreat north of the Litani, which is Israel's key security concern. And the surprising thing is, it makes no mention of Hezbollah in this, or the statement makes no mention of Hezbollah, claiming that it's a situation between the state of Israel and the Lebanese government, as if the Lebanese government is able to enforce any type of ceasefire or I don't know, like retreat, or it can. I mean, basically, it can't enforce Hezbollah to retreat back to north of the Litani, and that's a whole other issue on how the Lebanese government is weak, how Hezbollah has an influence over them, how they fear that if they impose anything on Hezbollah, that might create a civil war or schism between the people, and a war that they would lose probably because Hezbollah is significantly stronger than the LAF. So I mean, it's not a ceasefire proposal that guarantees Israel's security objectives. And I mean, the bottom line is, Israel is causing a significant damage to Hezbollah's infrastructure over the past week, and the ceasefire proposals have failed since October 8th. Now, when they see that Israel is causing this significant damage, they want them to stop. It's unrealistic. It will only delay the future war with amidst, or with a rested Hezbollah, with a stronger Hezbollah. So, yeah, I mean, it's. But I mean, I'm not surprised that this was proposed. It's this has been the case since October 7th with Israel, and forcing ceasefire proposals down their throat. So,
yeah, you could be pretty sure if Hezbollah is coming out and wanting a ceasefire that the Israelis are probably doing something right. This isn't the time to stop now, right?
Exactly. Not when you've conducted 6,000 strikes against their positions, killed their key leadership, eliminated the leadership or the command of potentially Hezbollah's strongest asset, the Radwan force. That's not what you do when you achieve that military success. I mean, Israel's end goal is the return of its civilians to the north, and this ceasefire does not do that.
No, the Israelis, in my estimation, would be crazy to stop now. It's really interesting. The Biden administration continues to push for a ceasefire. How is within Israel? How is the Biden administration viewed? Is it viewed as being a neutral actor in this, or are Israelis seeing the Biden administration as siding with their terrorist enemies? David, I'll pitch that at you. Really simple question to answer there.
I mean, I think the Israeli public is inherently and instinctively and in a knee-jerk way, in a good way, right? I think that's a good thing, pro-American. I think the perception, I remember seeing images of streets in Tel Aviv with President Biden as Captain America, right, shielding Israel. There's a Israeli rap song on the events of 10/7, which recalls Biden's "Don't." Like, America's behind us, don't, and Biden said, it uses that line, it cuts to that line where Biden said, don't. So I think the perception, it really depends. I think there has been some tension, this perception that America is angry with Israel. Now, some of that is being directed at Prime Minister Netanyahu. Again, it depends on who you're asking. If you're the pro-Bibi camp, the anti-Bibi camp, some people will direct that at Prime Minister Netanyahu and say that this is his fault. He's adding tension. He's mismanaging the relationship. You have segments of Israeli society that are calling for a ceasefire. I mean, we saw Ahmad sent me a piece by a non-expert on Lebanon. How am I allowed to call out people here?
Sure, I don't know, go for it. Generation Jihad. We do what we want.
Yeah. Dalia Scheinlin, who I think is excellent when it comes to Israeli social issues. She's a former pollster for the Meretz party, and again, when it comes to Israeli social issues, she's excellent about keeping her finger on the pulse. But for whatever reason, she's injected herself into this conversation with several times about should Israel go to ceasefire with Hezbollah. And she's, the headline, I think, yesterday, Ahmad, right, was Israel should accept a Hezbollah ceasefire. So you do have people who have that, I don't know if you want to call it, unrealistic defeatist mentality, and perhaps it's stemming from a blind hatred of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I'm not I haven't sat down with these people to understand what is really going on there. But I would say generally the Israeli public would be split on this issue. Who to blame? But I think when it comes to Hezbollah, we've seen a phenomenon over the past weeks prior to this escalation in Lebanon, where there were Israelis out in the streets demanding the return of the hostages, putting pressure on the government. Hundreds of thousands of people, allegedly. Now that the Israelis have shifted the weight of the fighting to Lebanon, that seems to have receded significantly, if not, I don't want to say died out entirely. people are behind this. People are behind this. The people most affected, the citizens of the North, most who are behind this. And I don't think they want, I think if they look at a ceasefire proposal, it's not necessarily anger at America. It's probably like, America, you don't know what you're talking about right now. You know, we're gonna do what's necessary.
Well, gentlemen, any new news before we wrap this up, or still developing?
So, according to Lebanese sources, Safieddin, who David mentioned, could be, or Nasrallah's cousin and potential successor, is alive. But again, we'll be hearing news until tomorrow about the fate of Nasrallah and his advisors and all that stuff, but with no confirmation. Also, yes, ABC News also reported that Nasrallah and his top military advisors were visiting Beirut for a short visit today. So,
where would he be holed up normally if he's not in Beirut?
Maybe he's hanging out in Iran. Yeah. Maybe he could be anywhere else. I mean, look, the Hezbollah also has strongholds in the Bekaa. They could, that's a good question, right? He could be, I would imagine he's not in South Lebanon, but the Bekaa is larger, probably harder to find him there. It's a good question.
Also to Syria as well.
Yeah, Syria. Yeah,
that's a dangerous place, though. That's a free fire zone.
It is.
So, I mean, the Bekaa Valley is close to Syria. So
I'm sorry. You said close to Syria. My apologies.
You'll be able to move freely between there.
Mm-hmm. Lebanese security source just told CNN that they're still awaiting to determine the fate of Nasrallah. So I think my sense that Al-Ahad would have come out immediately and said, like, if he was not there, if he was somewhere else, Al-Ahad, which is Hezbollah's official newspaper, would have come out and said Nasrallah wasn't there. Right? He was somewhere else. So he was, at least we can surmise from that he was, at the very least, that he was there.
At the headquarters, yeah. And I guess one last question, I'll pitch this to both of you. If Nasrallah is dead, do you think the Hezbollah would put on a big funeral for him, or would this open up liabilities for them as well, given what the Israelis are doing? Would the Israelis take that opportunity?
That's a good question. I mean, it's the questions who's left, you know? If you've just killed, there are contradictory reports. Safieddin could be alive. Safieddin could not be alive. If he is dead, who's left? Who's left that's significant? You could, right? There's Naim Qasim, but Naim Qasim isn't really a significant military or organizational figure. He's a thinker. He's a philosopher. He's not someone who's an administrator who has the skills necessary. You could. Clearly, the Israelis are taking risks. There's an, I don't care attitude right now. Let the consequences be what they may. But also, I think they took Hezbollah's pulse, as Ahmad and I have discussed, after August 25th, when their response to the killing of Fuad Shukr was a propaganda, like an exercise in theatricality. Yeah, Hezbollah can lie to its base and say, hey, we did all this and we killed 22 Israelis and wounded 75 and hit Unit 8200 headquarters. But the Israelis know that didn't happen. And Hezbollah knows the Israelis know that didn't happen. And that leaves you open up to all types of things. So, I think there could be, but the question is, who's left? Who's left? But there is a broader question. Look, and Bill, you know this, right? Targeted killings don't necessarily destroy an organization. But it seems like what the Israelis are trying to do is not just, eliminations at the top, but going deeper. I forget which Israeli official said, that's true, unless you end up scraping the bottom of the barrel. And I think they're going right to the bottom of the barrel right now. If you kill Nasrallah and, 4 people below him, for example, it becomes very difficult, right? The person 4 people below him is not in a position to immediately take over running the organization. So that puts them at a disadvantage.
One of my, criticisms of the U.S. campaign to target al-Qaeda and other groups in Pakistan was, they were killing individuals. They were killing key individuals, but they weren't doing it fast enough, and they weren't going deep enough into the bench, right?
And the Israelis certainly are. Speed, depth.
Speed and depth are key to these campaigns, in my estimation. And I also think that, David, it's providing a deterrent factor as well. This is how you restore deterrence right here to show that you're serious. Ahmed, I'll give you the last word. Any thoughts on what would happen with a funeral? Anything else you want to bring up?
When I look at what's happening today, I remember Israel announcing that Mohammed Deif was targeted, and how Hamas quickly came out and denied that the reports 30 minutes after the IDF announced it. It's been 2 hours now. It's radio silence from Hezbollah's side. I mean, even though we see these reports that he survived, he didn't survive, we don't know if his fate is unknown. What we know now is that Israel is willing, and it's so we've seen strikes on Dahiya, one airstrike, 2 airstrikes, but then today was this total destruction of whatever compound or headquarters were there. So if Nasrallah himself is not dead, at least, but we know a lot of people or a lot of top guys from Hezbollah are dead, and that puts that damages the organization, and significantly. So I guess I'll be keeping an eye today to see if Hezbollah do confirm. I don't think so. I think they, if he's dead, they'll confirm by tomorrow, or whatever. But probably not in the next few hours.
The Lebanese Health Ministry has just for updates, said 2 people have been killed, 76 wounded. Iranian, I think IRNA said 14 at least killed. So identities not yet, but to Ahmad's point, the massive strike. I mean, I joked, I'm like, did the Israelis just nuke Beirut? They were making sure that whatever they were targeting did not survive. I think I read news that 6 buildings had been flattened. You're hitting something very high value. You're trying to make sure you have no possibility of escaping this.
Yeah, I saw the videos. They were, it was pretty interesting. That was not one bomb that was dropped. You saw a succession of bombs. David, Ahmed, thanks for joining us. Ahmed, you got to come and join us again soon. We'll get an update. Maybe we'll do an update early next week, figure out what's going on here. Hopefully we have some good news to report. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's episode of Generation Jihad. Just a reminder, you can listen to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe to Generation Jihad and leave us a review, preferably a positive one, but only if we earned it. Thanks again, and we'll see you all again real soon.